So, welcome to week 3 of qualitative methods. And after reading some of your submissions from last week, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page with what we mean by qualitative research because it's different in different disciplines. And depending on who you've worked with in your research, you might think of qualitative as one thing, while I might think of it as another. So just to go back to some of the tables that we looked at last week, to compare quantitative to qualitative research, there's a difference in the purpose and the methods and the design and even how we report things when we look at quantitative versus qualitative research. And here, this table shows you that in terms of quantitative research, the idea for quantitative is that you really want to confirm something. You want to confirm something that you already suspect to be true, and that's your hypothesis, your idea. And you're testing it, and you're asking, what is going on, or how many is it happening to? Whereas in qualitative research, the idea is not to confirm anything, but actually to find out what should be a hypothesis. You're exploring, you're explaining, you're trying to understand. You're asking yourself, how is something happening? Why? And when would it happen? Under what circumstances? The data in quantitative research is quantitative. It's numbers and usually statistical results. Whereas in qualitative, it's narratives, pictures, objects, and events. It can be a lot of things. The methods in quantitative research are pretty much structured and very standardized, and we're talking about equipment like scales that need to be calibrated so that everybody has the same standard of measurement in their study. It might be very structured questionnaires or surveys with closed-ended questions toward quantifiable answers. Qualitative research is less structured and often not structured at all. It might include interviews, observations. The questions are usually very open-ended, and they go towards exploring a topic. The design for quantitative is also very structured and developed in advance, so that every participant or every research subject has the same thing happening to them in the research process. Whereas in qualitative research, it can be flexible. Things can emerge and evolve as the study develops. As you collect some data, you might change your questions to actually focus on some of the findings you're getting and to delve deeper into what you're finding. And we'll discuss more of this throughout the semester. And then in quantitative research, the reports, or how you disseminate reports, are through results. And you're reporting using very objective, unbiased language. So rarely would you ever use personal pronouns like me or I. It's really the subject. It's written in a very third-person type of way. And again, you're reporting mainly numbers and statistics. Whereas in qualitative research, you might bring yourself into the findings. The findings are what you're reporting, not results, they're findings. And you're reporting using very subjective, maybe value-laden, and interpretive language. So you might provide some quotes from the research and talk about what you're interpreting from what you're finding. So here's other ways that we've compared quantitative and qualitative research. Quantitative research is very objective, whereas qualitative is subjective. In quantitative research, as we'll discuss in this week, there really is this idea that there is a reality, there is a truth out there, and I can find it with a 0.05% chance of error. Whereas in qualitative research, the idea is that people have their own experiences and therefore there are multiple realities of what's going on. And therefore we're trying to listen to everybody's truths. In quantitative research, we strive to reduce control in order to predict, to have an idea of what causes what without other variables impacting what I'm finding. Whereas in qualitative research, the idea is rich description. Quantitative research is very measurable, whereas qualitative is interpretive. Again, the reporting in quantitative research is often the how many, reporting statistical findings, whereas the qualitative is rich narrative. In quantitative research, as we'll discuss this week, the researcher is separate and disengaged, and therefore very objective. Whereas in qualitative research, the researcher is often part of the research process because they're the ones interpreting what they're finding. In quantitative research, the participants are often called subjects, and in qualitative, they might be called participants or even partners or co-researchers. And again, in quantitative research, we're trying to control for extraneous elements, extraneous variables. While in qualitative, we're very context dependent. We want it to be in a non-controlled environment. And the idea is to get the full story and the full context of what is going on. So just to get us to our next set of slides, think about this quote. A researcher's background and position will affect what they choose to investigate, the angle of the investigation, and the methods judged most adequate for this purpose, the findings considered most appropriate, and the framing and communication of the conclusions. So I'm going to stop here, and then we'll move on to our next slides to talk about paradigms and why this quote is so important.